morning, everybody. Fox's alert now on what is certainly a big morning ahead on the battle for immigration reform. President Trump inviting lawmakers to the White House, and the agenda: can he bridge the gap between parties on border security and protecting the dreamers here in the U.S.? Good morning, everybody. If you stayed up late, you saw an awesome football game. If you didn't, we'll show it to you in a matter of minutes.
You won our little wager, so we'll get to that in a few moments.
Good morning. How you doing,
Good
Sandra?
morning, everybody. Welcome to America's Newsroom. I'm Sandra Smith. Top lawmakers will head to the White House today, already knowing what President Trump's demands are: funding for his border wall and some big changes to our immigration system in exchange for any protections for those so-called dreamers.
And laying out the case, a senior White House advisor, Stephen Miller, saying that any deal must benefit all Americans, but questions whether or not Democrats are willing to negotiate.
Democrats oppose a border wall. They're just saying they want continued, unending illegal immigration. Look, Democrats ultimately have to make a choice. They care a lot about providing a benefit to illegal immigrants. We're saying to them, if you want to make that deal, then you have to deliver benefits for American families and American taxpayers, too. And if both sides are willing to agree to those terms, Tucker, then we can have a deal.
John Roberts live at the White House for us this morning. John, good morning to you. And tell us about this big White House meeting happening today with some unusual weather happening behind you there, sir.
Yeah, we're in a bit of a pea soup fog here at the White House, but it is kind of pretty this morning. Good morning to you, Sandra. A group of 20 Republican and Democratic senators and members of Congress will be over here at the White House for an 11:30 meeting on immigration. Interesting to note that none of the so-called Big Four in leadership, McConnell, Ryan, Schumer, or Pelosi, will be here. But some of the notables who will be attending: the House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, as well as the whips John Cornyn, Dick Durbin, Steny Hoyer, the Judiciary Committee chairs and co-chairs Chuck Grassley, Dianne Feinstein, Bob Goodlatte, Mike McCall, and Benny Thompson, who are the chair of the ranking on the Homeland Security Committee, will be here, as well as some other notables: Lindsey Graham, Heidi Heitkamp, and Henry Cuellar. Among the topics of discussion, the fix for the so-called Dreamers Act, that's DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals that was implemented during the Obama administration. The president, though, is going to stick to his guns that if he is going to make concessions on the Dreamers, he wants something in return, including construction of a border wall and other security measures. Here's the White House senior advisor for strategic communications, Mercedes Slapp, from this morning.
The president has made it very clear he wants to have secure the border, interior enforcement. We want to end chain migration and close the loopholes, including ending the diversity visa lottery. I mean, those are critical components to ensuring that we know who is coming into our country and also to enforce the law.
So you might be asking, well, the president's got to convince Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to get on board any plans, so why aren't they coming over today? White House officials tell Fox News that this meeting is all about getting together a group of people who want to seek a solution and not play politics, get to some sort of basis of agreement, and then sell it on a broader level. The White House is also saying that it's really been driving the bus on this issue for a while, and at some point there needs to be a counter proposal from Congress, one that they haven't seen yet. And Sandra, even though it's still 2 months away, time flies here in Washington, and time is beginning to run out because something has to be done about the Dreamers by the 5th of March.
Sure does. All right. And John, the president's legal team is getting ready for a possible interview with special counsel Robert Mueller. You've talked to them. What did they tell you?
Well, I've talked to some sources who are familiar with what's going on here. And first of all, these sources, say to me, nothing may happen here, all right? It's too preliminary to talk about anything happening at this point, and in the end, nothing may happen. But I'm told that the legal team is expecting that at some point in the next few weeks, as he begins to wrap up his investigation, they believe Robert Mueller will ask for some sort of an interview with the president. There have been some preliminary discussions between the president's legal team and Robert Mueller's office about what form and forum that may take. There may be an in-person interview. I know the legal team would like it to be with Robert Mueller, but you just don't want to turn the special counsel loose on your client, so there would be a defined set of parameters going into any kind of one-on-one interview about what areas will be covered, what questions can and cannot be asked. There's also a couple of other options that they're weighing. The president might submit a set of written answers to questions that were submitted by the special counsel's office. The president might even just do something as simple as swearing out an affidavit that this is his position on the case, and then the special counsel's office has got the sworn statement from the president. Again, nothing may happen here, but there is an expectation that at some point in the next few weeks, Robert Mueller will ask for some sort of interview with the president. So we'll keep a close eye on this.
Certainly
Sara?
a lot of talk about that this morning. John Roberts, thank you.
Thank you.
Another big story watching this morning now, and this is happening from overseas. North and South Korean leadership sitting down for a historic meeting today. The first time in more than 2 years, we're now hearing that both sides have agreed on the following. They will hold talks, apparently, on reducing military tensions. They will actively cooperate for the Olympics next month in Seoul, South Korea. Seoul saying that includes North Korea sending a delegation to the Games. Meanwhile, President Trump scheduled to meet with Defense Secretary Jim Mattis today at the White House amid questions about America's strategy in dealing with the threat from Pyongyang. John Bolton, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, senior fellow American Enterprise Institute, Fox News contributor. And, sir, good day to you.
Good morning.
Pattern for North Korea, as you know, sit down about every 2 years. It has happened as of today. Do you see an opportunity for a breakthrough at this point?
I think these talks represent no chance for a breakthrough. I think the entire purpose the North Koreans had in mind was a propaganda campaign, and it's succeeding very well. You can read or watch in various American news media people talking about what a breakthrough it is and how significant it is. The only reason that this is happening, I fear, is that North Korea thinks it's so close to finally achieving its long-sought objective of getting deliverable nuclear weapons that it's going to buy 6-8 weeks here until after the Olympics of people rhapsodizing over these talks, taking advantage of a weak South Korean government, and trying to counter pressure and ideas within the Trump administration that maybe military force might be necessary against their nuclear program. It's so entirely predictable. It's just unbelievable.
Given that scenario, then, you think come March we're back to where we were? Olympics
I think we're back.
Yeah,
I think we're back to where we were right now, because I don't think there's any substance to this. North Korea graces the world with its presence at the Winter Olympics. I mean, I can hardly contain myself. This is the kind of propaganda victory that is easily obtained when you're dealing with a South Korean government that's just desperate for some kind of opening to talk to the North Koreans. Nothing will change as a result.
The cameras are going to eat it up, right? Opening ceremonies, North and South Korea walking out together.
This is like deja vu. All over again. 2000 Olympics, 2004 Olympics, same kind of government in South Korea, same kind of concessions to North Korea, same total lack of results on the nuclear program.
The strategy for North Korea, how much of this is trying to get between South Korea and this U.S. president?
Oh, I think trying to drive a wedge is always part of North Korea's strategy. It's very hard for President Trump to say in his conversation with South Korean President Moon last week, no, don't talk to them, don't invite them to the Olympics. And everybody knows the dynamic here. I mean, we're going through a game of charades. And it's going to have to play out. I don't see any other alternative. It's just that people should understand this means nothing substantively on the nuclear issue.
Quickly on Iran, this is certification deadline as of this Friday, end of the week. What does the president do?
Well, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't have any inside information. I would abrogate.
4,000 arrests were made during the most recent protests. What do you make of the size of that number? Because it has far exceeded what any international observers had expected.
Right. Well, the government obviously clamped down on external press coverage, so we really don't know a lot about what happened. But I believe, given the breadth and the extent of these demonstrations, the clear, explicit calls for the regime to be overthrown, we've got here a real demonstration just how unpopular and weak the regime is. What it has is the barrel of the gun. That's what sustains the Islamic Revolution, the Revolutionary Guards Corps, the Basiji militia. But I think this is a moment in history. We might see a regime change here if we could help the opposition. I'm not saying tomorrow, but in the near future. And in the meantime, I think we could destabilize the government in Tehran, and that might impede their progress toward nuclear weapons. I would not let up the pressure.
That sounds significant. If you get regime change of this current government in Tehran, what replaces it?
Well, I think the logical step is to let the Iranians figure out how to hold an election. I don't think that requires American involvement. I think there's a good argument that we ought to stay out of that. And let's see who is the most popular political figures inside Iran. A free and open election, I think, is what the people want. It's an educated population. It's young, 70% of the population under 30. That's one of the major sources of discontent. And I think you've got major opposition groups already saying they will give up the nuclear weapons program.
Thank you, sir, for your time today. You don't know what's behind door number 2. John Bolton, thank you, though, in Washington, D.C., and you don't know ultimately whether or not they would be more friendly or more pro-Western. Perhaps, perhaps not. We'll see.
So many important deadlines coming up, including the recertification or not of that Iran nuclear deal, among so many other things. Bill?
Watch it.
All right. A stunning new report now claiming that the source of many of those FBI leaks could have been coming from these 2 anti-Trump FBI officials, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Remember those anti-Trump text messages? They were also having an affair while working on the Mueller campaign or investigation. What we are now learning about that report and what Republicans are doing to investigate. Jason Chaffetz is fired up, and he will be here on that. Plus this.
Oh, are you happy you voted for me? You are so lucky that I gave you that privilege. The other choice wasn't going to work out too well for the farmers.
President Trump back on the road making his case for America's farmers. Yesterday, big speech in Tennessee. The president saying that his tax reform plan will help grow industries across the nation. Former economics advisor for President Reagan, Art Laffer, will break that down in a moment.
To hearing from him. Plus, the White House says it would welcome a possible 2020 presidential run by Oprah Winfrey. And late-night talk show host seized on the idea as well.
I'll tell you. It's interesting. I, for one, would love to hear that the State of the Union is strong.
The president's made it very clear what he wants. It's clear what the Democrats want. I'll tell you what I want. I want to see an end to the 15-year bipartisan refusal to enforce the law.
I'm all for comprehensive. I'm all in for that. But we can't do it before the 4th of March. We've got to protect these kids. And obviously, there's going to be a border security element of that.
Why does it take so long to do the right thing? Everyone here knows the type of compromise we need on immigration, and everyone just wants to keep postponing it.
Well, there you have a sample now. What's on the line? Top Republicans and Democrats sitting down with the president today. Critical meeting on immigration. Can they overcome years of partisan divide on the issue? Adrian Elrod, former director of strategic communications, Hillary Clinton, Rich Lowry, editor National Review. How you guys doing? Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Bill.
Fix immigration. Give us some money for the border wall / divide / fence, whatever you want to call it. And the dreamers get to stay, and perhaps they even get citizenship at one point. To both of you, I believe if you remove the far right and you remove the far left, there is a deal to be had on this. Rich is...
I think it's possible, but unlikely. And this is the big speed bump in the road, Bill, is that Donald Trump needs something he can plausibly call a wall. That was one of his signature promises in the campaign. It means a lot to him, means a lot to his voters. And the Democrats have portrayed the wall as a symbol of hate, as something as a complete waste of resources. So if they plausibly give him something that he can call a wall, they really can't go home to their voters and sell that. So I think that's going to be the obstacle, and that's the reason why we're probably not going to get a deal.
So you're saying no on a deal. I'm saying it's there, Adrian. I'm saying it's there.
Well, I sure hope you're right.
Do you want it to happen, Adrian?
Of course we want compromise.
So then would you give the money for whatever border security comes from that
Well,
spending?
look, I think Senator Kamala Harris said it best yesterday when she said, look, I'm all about border security, but I don't want a wall. Absolutely no wall. There's a way to have better border security by beefing up agents at the border, by beefing up more funding for border security agents across the border. But absolutely building a wall is off the table for Democrats. We also want a DACA fix to 800,000 DACA recipients who are living in the United States. President Trump had the ability to renew DACA. He chose not to and to leave it in the hands of Congress. So we also want a DACA fix. This is not rocket science, Bill. There is room for compromise. I'm with you. I hope you're right. But there is room for compromise, and Democrats and Republicans have got to come to the table on this.
Well, look, there's a structural problem also here from Trump's perspective. Democrat can say, oh, here's $5 billion for a wall this year. But if you actually build a wall, that's a multi-year project, maybe 10 years out from now. And what guarantee can you possibly have for continuous funding for this project? So I think it'd be more important to focus on changes of the legal immigration system in exchange for codifying DACA. The end of chain migration the president has talked about a lot, an end to the diversity lottery. And I think those are very important, and I would argue more important than the wall, but I doubt those are going to get done.
Would you give him
either.
those changes on immigration, Adrian? Would you grant it that?
Yeah, look, you know, I'm certainly not. I'm not the one. No, I'm not negotiating this bill, but Democrats have made it very firm that the funding bill is the last train leaving the station for DACA.
Got it. But then you know what we've got, Adrian? We've got this stubborn thing called videotape. It's ancient. It came long before Bitcoin. In fact, because of videotape, we have this from 2016.
It will authorize some badly needed funding for better fences and better security along our borders. Yes, we need tougher border security and stronger enforcement measures. Yes, we need more resources for customs and border agents and more detention beds.
That's a young-looking Barack Obama. It was 2016. That was 2006. You know the other stubborn thing about videotape? It goes back to 1996 as well, when this was spoken.
Tonight, I announce I will sign an executive order to deny federal contracts to businesses that hire illegal immigrants. Let me be very clear about this. We are still a nation of immigrants. We should be proud of it. We are also a nation of law.
Well, how things have changed. Adrian?
Yes. No, look, I think President Clinton and President Obama were speaking to issues at that time when they were talking about border security. But I think also, Bill, what these videos reiterate, this has been an issue that's been going on for a long time. Both Democrats and Republicans, especially the moderates in both parties, are looking for a compromise, a real solution when it comes to immigration reform. So I think if Democrats and Republicans can come to a deal on DACA as part of this budget fix, then maybe we'll see it.
You wonder whether or not Democrats want to give the president a victory on that. We can debate that next time. Thank you, Rich. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you, Bill.
You bet. You're safe.
Two tech giants facing lawsuits that claim discrimination against conservative voices in Silicon Valley. Google and Twitter both under fire. The details in a live report next. Plus, White House senior policy advisor Stephen Miller firing back at CNN after that contentious interview. Why he says he was treated very unfairly.
Like many things CNN says, their latest story has the most important virtue of all CNN stories of being not true. CNN has been extraordinarily biased, extraordinarily unfair to the president, and is not giving their viewers honest information.
Quick note here, Fox News confirming former Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney was treated for prostate cancer over the summer. Aides say the prognosis is good. The cancer was surgically removed. It did not spread. The news comes amid speculation that Governor Romney, now a youthful 70, plans to campaign for Senator Orrin Hatch's open Senate seat in the state of Utah.
Google and Twitter both facing lawsuits alleging discrimination against conservative viewpoints. A conservative publisher suing Twitter for banning him from the platform, as well as a former Google engineer filing a class action lawsuit claiming the tech giant discriminates against white men and conservatives. Here's James Damore explaining why he thinks he was fired.
There's continued harassment and career sabotage of anyone that expresses a conservative viewpoint. And there's constant shaming and attacks against white men within Silicon Valley.
William LaJeunesse is live in LA for us this morning. William, what are some of the details coming out of this lawsuit?
Well, Sandra, the lawsuit contains some powerful accusations about how Google treats employees with conservative views. So we put it at the top of the FoxNews.com website for you to read. It is contentious but also an important case because of the influence that Silicon Valley has over what we read and see. The politics of Silicon Valley skews to the left. That's not a secret. What the lawsuit contends is that liberal point of view dictates and influences the news and content that it presents, and that it discriminates against conservative opinion. From his complaint, here's some of the allegations. Number one, that Google belittles and punishes conservatives for their political views, that they enforce illegal hiring quotas for women and minorities, and that they shame managers who fail to meet those quotas. Also, that it mocks white male employees with boos at meetings. It's in the complaint. Damore's memo. He pointed out some of these inconsistencies and circulated that internally, and yet the reaction? One Google director said his essay was repulsive and intellectually dishonest, that he promoted violence against Damore because of his memo. And one email said, "You're, quote, a misogynist and a terrible person. I will keep hounding you until one of us is fired." Something.
There's just so much shaming that's happening because if you ever open up that you have certain viewpoints, then you'll be your career will be sabotaged.
Now, Google CEO fired Damore for, quote, perpetuating harmful gender stereotypes. Google says they will defend the lawsuit, and you can find that out. Well, take a look for yourself. It will probably be several months before we see anything in court.
And William, what can you tell us about this lawsuit against Twitter?
Well, it's very different. So the plaintiff there, Charles Johnson, is a conservative activist and a former Breitbart reporter. Twitter banned him in 2015 after he asked for donations to help take out a conservative, or rather a civil rights activist. He said that tweet was taken out of context and for spreading false rumors that the president was gay. Now, the lawsuit filed Monday, Johnson's attorney claims that Twitter banned him for his political views and that the suspension was a judgment call because he didn't make a direct violent threat. Twitter has declined to comment. Twitter says they, the Twitter's guidelines about who gets in and who gets out have always been kind of controversial. And some supporters of this guy say that, listen, there's a lot of false rumors posted about President Trump, and those individuals are not taken off. So it's about what are the rules of Twitter, and that are they strictly enforced or only enforced against conservatives?
Couple very interesting lawsuits there. We'll keep following them. William Lajeunesse, thank you.
Question now, did two FBI officials leak sensitive information on the Russia matter to the media? That is the question today as we're learning more about a stinging new report claiming just that. Jason Chaffetz's on deck. He'll join us live to answer it coming up. Plus, there's this.
President Trump was on the turf in Atlanta last night for a thrilling college football national championship. The instant classic ending to the all-SEC showdown. What a game last night. House and Senate committees are now reportedly looking into whether top officials in the Russia investigation leaked information to the media. It's all prompted by text messages between those anti-Trump FBI officials, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, shortly before Election Day 2016. Here are two of the messages obtained by The Hill. Page texting, quote, article is out, but hidden behind paywall, so can't read it. Strzok replied saying, Wall Street Journal, boy, that was fast. Should I find it and tell the team? House Intelligence Committee member Trey Gowdy, who has been at the forefront of these investigations, sounding off on this last night, saying he had concerns about FBI leaks before the texts became public.
I can't speak for the Clinton investigation, but I can tell you with respect to the investigation into the Trump campaign, we have serious concerns about people with the Bureau talking to various media outlets that weren't authorized to speak on behalf of the Bureau. So I'd love to tell you I'm surprised that someone at the FBI may have been leaking, but I'm not.
Joining me now is former Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz, a Fox News contributor. I'm sure you're going to tell me you're not shocked by any of this, but it's really something, isn't it, Congressman, to look at those text messages and see the manufactured surprise they tried to act out about this coming out in the Wall Street Journal? Clearly an indication to anybody reading those that they had something to do with those leaks.
Yeah, I mean, assuming these text messages are true. Remember, Peter Strzok is the senior-most counterintelligence person at the FBI. He's having an affair with this woman, and he's trading thousands upon thousands of text messages. And it does look that the only collusion they're able to see is the collusion to actually take these stories and get them placed in places like the Wall Street Journal. Now, I don't blame any of the media for taking this information, but when you have a senior-most FBI official doing this, instead of doing their job, then we got a real problem there.
Well, so this is obviously sparking major questions from Congress. You just heard Trey Gowdy, a House Oversight, a job you know very well, saying this is serious stuff here. So where does it go?
Now, remember, these are the same messages from the same people that they didn't want Congress, i.e. the American people, to see. It was back in August that Devin Nunes is asking for this information, having to issue a subpoena, and literally the senior-most people at the Department of Justice in the Trump administration refusing to give this information, to the point that the Speaker of the House has to get engaged with the senior-most people at the FBI in order to get these materials. So Trey Gowdy and Devin Nunes and Tom Rooney and Mike Conaway, the people at the House Intelligence Committee, they're just now getting these, and they're going to have to, siphon through some 10,000 text messages in addition to all the other documents that we have not yet seen.
But it's such a great point that you make that Peter Strzok, he was a serious part of this investigation, right? I mean, Democrats, you hear many times will say, well, there was a lot of people that had their hand in this investigation. He was just one of them, but he played a key role in all of this, Congressman.
He didn't just, look, he had a very senior position at the FBI. He didn't just have a bias against Donald Trump, but he was literally working with the other senior people there, people like Bruce Orr, who, again, gets demoted again. His wife, Bruce Orr's wife, Nellie, is working at a company, Fusion GPS. They only have 15 or so employees, yet there's millions of dollars that are going. And where does that money go? It goes overseas to try to get information about Donald Trump. And it just absolutely smells and looks so bad. And that's why the Inspector General's pounding on this. They'll have a report that should be out in the March timeframe. And then you have the House Intelligence Committee also looking at it as well.
So we don't know what exactly happened with Bruce Orr, right? If he resigned or if he was actually removed from the position. But this is the second time we've seen this DOJ official tied to that anti-Trump dossier demoted.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear at this point that his wife did work at the company where they were actually doing an investigation. She is a fact witness. That is the spouse of a senior FBI official who's working with Peter Strzok. I mean, you put this in a movie, Sandra, nobody's even going to believe it. But this is evidently what was going on at the FBI. At the same time, you had Director Comey testifying that the FBI was not leaking any information, only to find out later, after he left, that Director Comey was leaking information. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Congressman, what do you have to say more broadly speaking about a possible anti-Trump bias within the FBI and the DOJ?
Look, if you want to vote for the Democratic candidate, that's everybody's right. But when you're actually, what appears to me to be colluding with other people to come to a conclusion, to plant stories right before an election. Of course, as a senior-most person at the FBI, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, they're going to report this. But if you're spending your time and effort with the American taxpayers' dollars to try to affect the election, those people should be in jail. That is not what we hire them to do. We expect them to go find the facts, present those to the prosecutors, go to a grand jury, and see if there's been any criminal wrongdoing. Not to go play politics by planting stories in the national media.
Do you anticipate a lot more to come out of this? As you mentioned, Trey Gowdy just got his hands on all of those key witness interviews and documents. He's going to be poring over them. There's a lot to go through. Do you anticipate that there's going to be a lot more that we learn in the coming days?
I think the most seminal document or report that's going to come out of this will be from the Inspector General. Michael Horowitz, 450 employees at the Department of Justice looking under the hood, They're the ones that evidently found these text messages. I think when they come out with their report and Michael Horowitz goes before the House Oversight Committee, that will be a very revealing moment. And it comes from a request that I originally put in, but I know Elijah Cummings been supportive of this, and these are nonpartisan people. That report coming in March will be the most important document coming out.
Congressman Jason Chaffetz, it's always good to see you. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks, Sam.
Here we go. You ready?
All right, bring it.
College football's biggest night of the year came down to one final play in Atlanta. But before the game, there was an on-field visit for the commander-in-chief. Check it out in Atlanta. There you go, national anthem. President Trump there on the 50-yard line. Crowd gave him a big welcome. There were a few boos trickling through Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but then we get to the action, and man, was this something else. Georgia, Alabama, final game of the year in overtime, and here was your game winner.
Think about Loa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
I just wish I could have seen the thing, right?
Whoa.
Alabama's backup freshman quarterback who took over after halftime hit receiver Devontae Smith completing this epic comeback. Alabama trailed 13-0 early in the game. They win it 26-23. Alabama's 5th national title going back to 2009, and that is absolute domination in college football. What a game. Congratulations to both teams and their fans. It was really something else.
Clearly a thrilled Nick Saban there. It was an unbelievable game. And I mean, a hero was born. And Nick Saban proving his chops as a college football coach once again. Pulling your starting quarterback in the championship game at halftime and putting in a freshman.
Pretty amazing.
An unbelievable move by everybody. All right. Exciting game. Meanwhile, President Trump touting the roaring stock market during a speech to American farmers.
The stock market is hitting one all-time record after another. Everybody happy with your 401k? Because if you're not, there's something very wrong.
The president also says tax cuts will help bring historic relief to the heartland and the middle class. A former Reagan economics advisor is here to weigh in.
Also, big legal victory for Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy. He's been in a standoff with the federal government for years over his property. Details on his case coming up in moments.
World, here we are. We're fighting for freedom in the United States, and we're going to have freedom in the United States. We have the best Constitution. We have the best land, and it is a promised land.